Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please go and leave a 5-star review. I will read any reviews that are 5 stars. It doesn't matter what they say. I'll read them. Want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. Cushy Dreams offers a full lineup of premium smokable CBD. They specialize in extraordinary CBD-rich hemp flower, aka bud, in cans and pre-roll joints. I really particularly like the joints. I just have a couple pulls in the morning, and I feel like it calms down my mind and body, and it also helps me sleep at night. They have different strains that are like indica sativa blends with different names like Relax and Hustle and Peace. And create energy, dream. So whatever kind of a day you want to have, Cushy Dreams has your back. You can enjoy all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. These products have under 0.3% THC. It's cannabis that ships directly to you. It's legal in all 50 states. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. Looks, feels, smells just like high quality marijuana, but you're not going to get high. And they do tons of independent lab tests to show compliance and purity, all of which can be found on their website, cushydreams.com. Best of all, it's grown here in the USA. So go to cushydreams.com, Kushy dreams.com. And I like these 5-packs that they have too, actually. At the checkout, use promo code CMP to get 20% off your order. Isn't that nice? Really quick, I'm doing dates. The Domestic Terrorist Tour continues. I'm going to be in Wilmington, Delaware, April 23rd and 24th at the House of Laughs. Then heading to Florida, April 30th, I'll be at the Boca Black Box in Boca Raton, Florida. Then May 1st, the Lake Park Black Box Theater in Palm Beach. 5/2, I'll be at Side Splitters in Tampa. And then 5/9, the Bricktown in Oklahoma City. And then Comedians of the Compound will be in Austin, Texas on May 14th and 15th at the Big Laugh Comedy Club. Very excited for all those dates. Been really having fun getting back into more stand-up. So I'm so excited to have this guy on the podcast today. Been kind of like low-key fangirling, crushing, other adjectives on him for a while, observing, sort of a admirer from afar. He's an author. He's a cultural critic. He is the founder of New Discourses, which we will get into. Also, his new book, Cynical Theories, How Activist Scholarship Made Everything About Race, Gender, and Identity, and Why This Harms Everybody. James Lindsay.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks
That's
for
quite
coming.
The introduction.
I'm
working on some merch, maybe it's like a James Lindsay Fangirls Club, so you can join that since you admitted it.
For real? Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I did actually send it to my design guy and said, we need some like James Lindsay Fangirl merch. So maybe.
I would be into it. Yeah. I'm coming around. Like, when the word fangirl also reminds me of TikTok, which I got off it like at least a couple of years ago, because I was just like, oh, well, China's going to get all my information if I stay on TikTok. And now it's like, fast forward to now, it's like, well, they're already in. They're already kind of here. I might as well just get back on it and promote my stand-up. I don't know. It feels like a little bit like a losing battle sometimes.
Yeah, I don't TikTok. There is no TikTok in my life. I just looked at TikTok and I thought, well, that's probably not something I want to do. And then I found out about the China stuff and I'm like, yikes. I actually have been to China several times. So,
Wow.
They probably have all kinds of data on me. I know just to like go through the airport, like you have to like give them your fingerprints and stuff now. They probably have to do a retinal scan now. I don't know. Last time I went, it was fingerprints.
Did you say retinal or rectal?
Well, both apparently. That seems to be what they were doing. I don't know if they're still doing that. Loosen up your butthole, whatever. But I don't know why COVID's hanging out there. It's not where I would hang out if I was COVID.
Yeah, it's dark. It's lonely. There's not as many people back there as there used to be. I totally get it. I listened to your episode from about a month ago. You were on Tim Pool's show, which I love him. I watch him as much as I can because I just feel like it's a source of sanity in my life. And you said political warfare is the most important concept that you've never heard of. And I think it's so important because I think it's just eluded so many people. And first, I'm wondering where it came from, because it seems like it was all of a sudden 100% here. Like, or maybe I wasn't paying attention. I feel like a lot of us weren't paying attention, and I really loved the way that you explained it, that it's basically through this mid-level, the political left will use this mid-level violence. And I loved your example of like the poking until you can't take it anymore, and then they're just looking for a reaction. And I'm listening to you describe it, and I'm like, I know this might make me sound like anti-woman or whatever, but it sounds like this is like basically manipulation, almost like it's like when you think of a crazy ex-girlfriend or like a crazy girl that you're dating, just because I've heard so many stories, and who knows, maybe I've been that girl myself. It almost sounds like this is a crazy, manipulative, almost like female way of relating and domination. It almost is like, is this an answer to what people think is the more male, like the patriarchy, American values, conservatism? I started to make that comparison, and I was wondering what you thought.
Well, I mean, there's various aspects. Political warfare takes a lot of different forms. Propaganda is the most kind of obvious. There is also these kind of provocation type things like the mid-level violence. But you are definitely correct that with whatever's going on with this crazy movement, that there is some kind of noxious female energy kind of vibe around what's going on. I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson. I think everybody knows Jordan Peterson.
Love him.
I recently saw him talking to somebody, and it was really profound the way that he talked about it, because what he said was one of the things that the internet has provided is he starts talking about how he was on the Trigonometry podcast, and he was talking about how male violence operational, or violence in general, or aggression operationalized in certain ways, and that the ways that we might operationalize it we usually associate with kind of male bullying or fist fighting or, guns and extortion rackets and all kinds of things. And that, he says, doesn't upload onto the internet very well. Whereas female violence or aggression is this kind of social murder, this reputational undercutting, this subversion, the kind of, like you said, the crazy ex-girlfriend stuff, or even crazy current girlfriend stuff. It depends on the girl. He said that actually uploads onto the internet shockingly well. And I would add to his analysis, which is correct, that so do personality disorders. And personality disorders not only upload on the internet very well, they're very easy to hide behind avatars. Like, if you're a normal everyday person, you just assume whoever you're talking to on social media is probably also a normal everyday person. Probably you're not assuming that, they have borderline personality, or they have schizoid personality, or they have some narcissistic or other histrionic or something going on. And so the kind of aggression that follows personality disorders also uploads to social media extremely well. And Peterson's point, obviously, is as a society, we were not prepared for how effectively these kinds of like reputational destructions and psychological manipulations and gaslighting and things would transfer into the digital communication realm. And it's really an important thing, because this opened a door to political warfare, not only that we weren't prepared for, but also that could be taking place on a global scale. Like, we talked about Russian bot farms for like 4 years with Blue Anon, and now Wumao is the Chinese version of that, and they're certainly active. Usually you can kind of tell when Wumao's up to something because their English isn't great, which is slightly hilarious, but their style of insult, once you're familiar with Chinese manner, is pretty obvious. But I mean, that's the CCP doing psychological warfare on Twitter, which they block in their own country, with people all over the world. So now we have a global network of the ability to wage psychological warfare behind avatars in a circumstance where certain forms of abuse upload, real psychological abuse upload really, really well. Then we've got people like CNN, of course, just going full blast with their propaganda war. We're in the midst of more current, peaceful protests, as it said. So, what is it? Peaceful protests intensify. Antifa. This was a real CNN Chiron, whatever. Last January, it was something like Antifa seeks peace through violence. Like, that was really something they put on television. This is psychological manipulation, is what this is.
And you also have our very powerful social media, like influencers or recording artists. Like, I'll never forget, and this was not even that long ago, Cardi B she tweeted like, "Oh, it's okay to choose violence," or something like, "I woke up today and chose violence." And I'm just like, I don't know. Once you start putting together the pieces, you're like, how could she not be totally a total puppet? How could she not be totally paid to spread certain messages, because they almost seem to link together a little too well? And I thought that's so interesting what you said about the CCP, like their style of, I guess, like Twitter trolling, I guess. I don't know if you called it Wu Mao, but
Wu Mao.
And so I think, and that's fascinating. I've never heard anybody mention that, and you've been there. How would you describe the way, like, Chinese people basically they're making fun of Americans, or they're like, how would you describe their sense of humor or their
for a while
style?
They were, but it's like there were these Chinese state affiliated accounts that have like the little flag thing stuck on there. It says Chinese government affiliated account on Twitter, for example. And they'll say things like, now they'll just say something will happen, and they'll tweet, "America has to fix its systemic racism problem." But, it's like this really awkward sentence that people wouldn't normally use, in English. I didn't do a good job of rendering it into Chinese.
So it's like more grammatical. It's
grammatical. It's syntactical. Yeah, you kind of pick up on it. You're like, that's not how they talk, and there's been some cartoons that they put out that you see, and that they're really just over the top obvious with what they're trying to do. Like, the subtlety's not quite there. So, I mean, I don't have
and it's like everyone was thought. Yeah, no, I just remember, like, when Trump was in office, everyone was like, "Oh, Russian bots," and now it seems like I'm like, "Oh wow, of course!" Like, it's so insidious. There's like Chinese bots. Like, I don't know. It's kind of scary. I feel like my sister, who's a history teacher, should have warned me about all this. But
well, that's a thing. We have been pretty, in our education system, we've been pretty systematically left in the dark. I didn't even know what communism was till I was in college. Like, I'd heard it, obviously, but I didn't learn anything about it till I was in college. Like, how in the world can literally the driving force of the majority of 20th century politics have been left out of the entire curriculum in the 1980s and 1990s for somebody, even then? How in the world could that have been completely left out of the curriculum? I mean, I remember going to college and us having arguments, what's the difference between communism and socialism? Because we had no idea, because nobody had ever covered any of this in a single history class or anything else. And a lot of people I don't know how much directly this is the case, but a lot of people don't realize that these radical left activists more or less had taken over colleges of education and a lot of curriculum writing by the early 1980s. Like, the guys like Bill Ayers out of the Weatherman Underground, literal terrorist, became, when he realized he wasn't going to accomplish anything by terrorism, do you know what he became? K through 12 education activist.
Oh my God.
Angela Davis, who was a literal terrorist, who is the driving inspiration and the link between the crazy neo-Marxist radicalism of the 60s and the woke movement of today in a very real way, and who's still a very active agitator and activist today. Guess what she did whenever she got, finally got it kind of out of prison and all of the trouble in the 1970s? Became a major K through 12 education activist. So they started writing out the harms of communism out of our education. Everybody pointed the finger at, like, oh, the Texas Board of Education is like putting in all of this crazy pro-America garbage. That's bad. That's that's imperialist, that's Americanism, that's, you know, conservative or whatever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they were systematically writing out the fact that, you know, hundreds of millions of people died under their stupid program, to where nobody, you know, virtually no high school graduate in the United States in probably the last 20 years had a comprehensive education about communism whatsoever, or the fact that it fails every single time it's tried.
No, not at all. Yeah, like I can't even think. I mean, like, you know, I was only like a B student, but I can't recall like my biggest focus in high school was like, oh God, I gotta remember my shorts because then I'm gonna have to wear the lost and found shorts at gym.
Yeah, well, it's too bad you were a B student because the world is run by C students. So
Oh God.
you failed up.
And I loved hearing you describe, because I do stand-up comedy, and I only really got into podcasting in the last year or so, but I heard you describing like the typical blogger, the typical like you know, like semi, not full time, but I'm like, I can't find the word, but the type of person that goes into blogging and writing these like articles, the one that's like, all right, I write for whatever, and I've got to submit 5 articles a day. They are typically folks who major in like maybe psych or media studies. And I was like, that was me in college. Like I definitely should not have been the person to write any articles. But that's all what I was studying. And I'm just like, holy shit, my peers and my other, you know, friends at school, kind of, I saw them go off to, they either worked for legacy media or mainstream media companies, or they wrote for some newspaper or some like online. I don't know. It was scary because I was like, had I not found comedy, like that would be me. And you don't get paid unless your articles get clicks, and they're not going to get clicks unless you use certain buzzwords. And then it's like, it's almost like it's not even your own writing anymore. It's not your own viewpoint. You're completely being controlled by money because we all have to pay rent, and it's scary how this also turned into like just a total manipulation of language. And you've described before like how the left is so good at manipulating the language. Do you think that conservatives even have the, like, would it take to turn the tide a little bit? Would it take conservatives or the right basically fighting like how the left fights, like getting into this media manipulation? Like sometimes like on Twitter, if somebody calls me like a joke racist, I'll be like, you're a racist. And they sometimes just quiet right back down. If you call them a racist, if you call them a white supremacist, like you have to, and for a while I would try to explain myself and be like, no, these are jokes, or like, I'm not, but I learned that doesn't work. It's like, but once you call them racist, it's like, you're kind of fighting how they fight. And is it going to take conservatives or the right basically fighting how the left fights, getting down to their level to kind of turn the tide a little bit, or do we need to come up with something totally different?
So what you got to realize is that the left is much more strategic in this than you may realize. So whereas there are different domains in the world, and whereas the left is very like calling people names, etc., on social media, and they will occasionally try to pull that card in professional settings. Usually what they're doing is that in professional settings, they're acting in a much different way that's much more insidious. They are just actually proposing ideas and policies, besides the fact also that they show up. They're the people who want to be on committees. They want to be in the meeting. The people who want to go to meetings get to rule the world, I think is something somebody once said. And nobody wants to go to a meeting. And this is part of the problem. And what has to happen is that within the meeting space, conservatives do have to be willing to show up. They also have to be willing to demand clear definitions and clear explanations for what's going on. Oh, we're going to achieve liberation at our university. What the hell does that mean? Lay it out. What does liberation look like? And I mean, it's a basic kind of premise. Like if we were going to start a business, like you and me are going to go start a business, we would do like this 5-point program where it'd be like, you know, what do we want to achieve? How are we going to get there? What does it look like when we get there? You know, those kinds of basic business or whatever, corporate brainstorming exercises. That stuff has to get dragged out. Okay, you want liberation. What does that mean? How are we going to get there? What does it look like when we get there? How do we know we got there? And then what's the next step? Something like that. And if, people are going to have to demand very clear answers. What I keep hearing from people, and I hear this probably 1,000 times a month right now, is I finally got the courage to stand up to the people at, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at my workplace and I ask them, what does this mean? And they never have an answer. They can't even answer the first question. What does this mean? And so we have to start getting conservatives in the meeting space have to start demanding answers. Social media is a different a different animal entirely. On social media, something different has to be happening. You got to shitpost. You really got to shitpost those people right back into a hole in the ground. You have to know when it's time to all of a sudden be like, nope, you don't know what you're talking about, very serious. And then you have to know when it's time to be like, well, I had to put a brown bag on your mom, but I got her last night. So you have to know which one of those categories you're in, and you have to take it. Your mom goes to college, right?
Your mom jokes, yeah.
I mean, it's because they're so obvious that you're not taking the thing seriously, right? And that's you should never explain a joke, but it's just so obvious that you're not taking that person seriously at what they said, and that signals something very important. When one of the things that they're very good at manipulating people into doing, and like you said, you used to try to explain yourself, etc. What they're very good at getting people to do is to take something that's very not serious. They say it in a serious way, but what they're saying is not serious. White supremacy is the cause of it. That is not a serious statement made by an adult who knows anything about anything. And they get people to take this very seriously. Well, don't you think that was a little bit racist? And then there's a couple of things you can go, no. Or your mom thought it was racist. Or, yeah, of course it was. Why do you think it was funny? You got to figure out where to lean into it, because if you take it seriously on the terms that they're presenting, they're dragging you into their game. And this is really the point that I wanted to get to, is if conservatives fall into the trap of playing that game without understanding when and where that game is to be played, what they end up doing is I did a podcast about this once where I talked about it as like an alligator pulling you into the swamp, and it's going to roll you around. They own the swamp. If you get into the swamp with them, they're going to roll you, they're going to drown you, they're going to eat you. So conservatives can't fall too deeply into playing that game. That said, we are in it. I mean, I actually have just accepted that World War III is happening on twitter.com. And if you don't understand the battlefield and you don't understand the tactics of whichever, they say 5th generation, maybe we're up to like 11th generation war now. I have no idea. But if you don't understand the tactics of that, then you're not going to be able to participate in that in an effective way. But if you the left has been very successful literally for 200 years at dragging people into a narrative-driven dialectical frame, to get very technical, that they completely own all of that territory, all of that ground. It's like, we talk about political warfare and is this new, is it feminine? Well, I'm thinking of like reading Sun Tzu, The Art of War. This is written like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago in China or something like this. And they're talking about laying traps to bring the enemy in and get him caught on 3 sides. And they're bringing the enemy onto your terrain, or winning a war without firing a single, well, they didn't fire shots back then, without drawing a single sword or whatever. These kinds of political warfare strategies have all been in play for a very long time. And the left has the radical left, I should say, has very much absolutely owned a particular corner of that. And you can refer to it not as the same swamp Donald Trump was talking about, but as kind of a rhetorical swamp. And if you go in there, you will not win. So you have to, it's like figuring out your mom jokes keep your feet out of the water in some sense.
Because they've been around forever, and there's no, that's interesting, because I've heard you say, like, people refer to you as like, you're like the serious analyst and you're a smart guy and you have great takes, but then they also give you shit because you tell your mom jokes. It's like, you can also be funny. Yeah. You're saying it's on your Wikipedia, and I'm like, which sucks. Like, you can be smart and also have a great sense of humor, and one should not take out the other. Like, I'll get a lot of times like, oh, well, I'm never going to go to a comedian for any kind of a take. It's like this kind of like absolutist thinking. It's like, you should just expand your horizons more. And I don't know. I'm thinking like times were simpler when we just had like newspaper and a couple of channels, and now it's like everyone can participate in the news, and maybe we shouldn't. I mean, clearly we shouldn't. I think there's so many jobs in it, and not enough qualified people doing it. and they're motivated by things other than telling the truth, obviously.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is a huge, huge problem. I mean, you can just see even, it looks very nefarious with those videos or whatever will come out here and there, or screenshots where it's like, 30 news outlets across the country and it's literally the same wording, or they'll have that creepy video where it's like one person after another and it flashes between them and they're literally reading the same script that went out on the wire. A friend of mine told me a few years ago that the laziness of journalists, of hack journalists, is one of the biggest poisons in the world. They get this thing, they don't do any homework on it themselves, they don't look into it themselves, they don't try to figure out what's going on to report on it in a unique and interesting way. They just read the thing that comes to them. And that creates a problem because, you get one or two activists operating in kind of the wire area, the wire service area. And now all of a sudden, you literally have mass propaganda that looks completely organic to any particular viewer, which is unsettling. It's an unsettling amount of power. And certainly both sides of the aisle, if we want to do it this way, but the left they're very good at propaganda. They're very, very good at propaganda. They're very good at understanding how to apply propaganda. So that becomes really, really an issue, right? And for me, my answer has been pretty simple, which is that I've literally turned off all corporate press. I interact with none of it. I won't read the New York Times. I won't read any of these major outlets. If I look at them, it's only because I am looking for something, that's either egregious or to be pointed out or whatever. It's a very different engagement with the news sources. I only look at CNN to make fun of it. Literally, I've completely detached from the belief that anything there, even if 10% of it or 20% of it or 80% of it is true, even if 90% of it's true, the fact that they're still getting you with those 10% lies, and the more truth there is there, the more lie you're going to fall for. It's just too risky. So, I've stepped away from that. But then again, you got to watch out for alt media because, good Lord. I think that the biggest thing, though, this is what I was thinking about. Like, there's all this stuff. I got all stressed out last night, right? So Minneapolis is mayhem again. And then it can't just stay in it. This is what I was thinking about in particular. So Minneapolis is mayhem. Something happened in Minneapolis or thereabouts. And now there's like Antifas marching down, breaking windows in DC and New York. And it's like, why? Why? DC is nowhere near Minneapolis. Nothing happened in DC. Why is there some mayhem in DC? And this one I realized and I've thought about this a few times in other contexts, but it really hit me last night. I'm like, what the problem is, or what a problem is that we're way too much up in other people's business.
Yeah.
What's going on in Minneapolis sucks, but it has nothing to do with me. And there used to be, just because of the structure without the internet and everything else, there used to be this issue, this ability to just not know and not like you're going to read what happened in Minneapolis in some news story on a newspaper, kind of dead and boring, like, or it's some boring official newscast at 6 p.m. for 30 minutes. And then you're going to go back on with your day. Wow, whatever's going on there sucks. But now it's like you're in this constant get on social media and be pissed off about it for like 4 days. And the news cycle has just become this constant relentless being pissed off about whatever's happening somewhere that has nothing to do with you. Like there was literally a school shooting in the city I live in yesterday, and it didn't even register a blip compared to what's happening in some city that's 1,000 miles away from me. And it's like, this is a incredible distortion of our priorities that the internet has led us to. And I think about this kind of a lot now. I also thought about it in the context a while back where a friend of mine, there was something that happened where she lived, and something to do with a police shooting, as it turned out, of a guy that was a dangerous criminal. It was a completely justified shooting, etc. And nothing ended up turning into a story around it. And I think the guy was white, so there's no story to tell anyway, obviously, anymore. But the newspaper and television journalists came around and were asking people all over the area, like all around, going door to door, knocking on doors to ask people if they thought there was some racial motivation to it, so they could blow up a national story, so they could turn some stupid local incident into a national story. Because then you talk about, getting paid by click. Well, if your story blows up and goes viral at the national or international level, well, now you've got 4 million clicks instead of like 3,000 clicks. And, you know, you can go roll around in all 4 of your $20 bills that they gave you for that on your sweet double-sized bed.
Yeah, this is a whole, there's no way in which participating in this doesn't steal your peace. Like we've been hearing just from, my friends I've lost friends on social media as like my views come out more and more. The more like conservative I seem, the more like liberal friends I seem to lose, but I still, keep up and follow some. But it seems like the messaging everybody's been getting since the summer is like, well, silence is violence. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. So it fuels this whole like getting into everybody's business thing. And it's like you said, like how many murders are happening every day that the media just chooses not to talk about because it doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't like create the crazy that they want to create. And
my reaction to that is if you're angry, you're probably paying too much attention.
Yeah, that's something I came to learn too. Like over the last year, like if I'm reading anything at all and I'm starting to really feel a way, then it's like it's probably written to make you feel a way. If you're feeling angry looking at the news or looking at Twitter, like it's not you. It's like you're getting sucked into it, and you just I'm getting so much better at just like putting it down instead of like getting involved and wanting to explain yourself and wanting to be like, but he ran from the cops, but he got back in his car and drove away. Like it's not my job, nor am I an expert on any of these things to like explain it to some stranger on Twitter. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to put it down. Cause even if you're so involved, even if you're like donating to Dante's girlfriend and you're like doing everything and you're showing up to protests where you can, like that does ultimately nothing but steal your time and your joy and time away from your friends, your family, your dreams, your goals. It's like this big sparkly distraction. And I think people are like, "Oh, we can riot, we can possibly get free shit and not get in trouble. Like, oh, we can hop in a car and go do this thing," instead of like, yeah, I don't think there's not a podcast goes by where I don't mention Jordan Peterson, but like, right, let me do this big sparkly distraction instead of like, yeah, making my bed, doing my taxes, getting my shit together, like taking a look at my own future and being like, is my shit in order? I think it's just like folks are so the people that want to avoid their life and their responsibilities are particularly lulled in by like this drama and this chaos of other people's business.
It's like reality TV, like, but for real finally. And it's not good. It is not good. At least though there are jokes now, right? So like as a comedian, you can at least appreciate, because for a while you weren't allowed to make jokes about anything and people would like just shit their pants if there were jokes. And now people are making jokes. Like I saw the other day, use the promo code BLM for 100% off at Nike. And I'm like, that's hilarious.
That's fucking great.
Like, I wish I wrote that joke. That's hilarious. So at least people like that's a sign of something. Like for a while, comedy got super, super suppressed. And I know it's probably still fairly suppressed, but like they were literally trying to push this shit called post comedy, like comedy that's intentionally not funny.
Yes, and it was so much of it was in New York, and it's like exactly what me and my friends like are the kind of antithesis of. And like I think we did kind of what you're saying, like in kind of like the news and truth world, you have to tell them they're wrong, you can't back off. Because I would notice the comics that kind of backed off and was like, well, we can't I'm just not going to engage with the cancel culture people or the anti-comedy people or the woke comedy people. It's like, well, that didn't work. And I felt like what I did, I leaned in and I didn't back down. I didn't apologize. I told them these are jokes, like you really need to cool it. And I felt like that did work better, because you got to stick up for yourself, man. Like it's comedy. True. Comedy is a solo sport. But I just felt like I really had to do it for kind of everybody. And even with this podcast, like I'll talk to Gavin McGinnis, I'll talk to like me, I'll talk to James Lindsay.
No, but it's like, you're right. You have to lean in. That's what I do too. Like people are like, and the thing is like every style of joke, it's going to have its shelf life. It's going to not fit after a while. But for right now, that is it. And in fact, maybe leaning into whatever the absurdity is kind of always, an underlying motif of humor. But for example, this is one of my favorite jokes I think I ever pulled. And it's like people are still all happy about it or whatever. maybe it's not even a joke. I don't know. I've got like, I changed my name on Twitter, right? A lot. Like right now, my name, because of that stupid Senator Gillibrand thing where she's like, basically us giving you whatever you want is infrastructure.
Oh
And
yeah,
so I
yeah.
changed my name on Twitter to well hung infrastructure. But a while back, Trump retweeted me once while he was president.
Wow. Oh my God, that's so cool.
And all these people got really mad at me. Like they went berserk on me. And they were like, you have to denounce him now. You have to denounce. And to this day, people think Trump retweeting me turned me MAGA, which like I
Wow.
got starstruck by that. Like I don't care. But these people were like, you have to denounce him. And I immediately changed my name to retweeted by the president. And people went fucking
I
berserk.
remember that. I remember that.
It was the best. And then that led me, at first I was just doing still, I mean, the very first name change I ever had, by the way, was that I changed, like people were going around, the context was that everybody was like, I'm, feministy PhD. Like they had to put their stupid credentials, and it was like credential this, credential that. Everybody, there was a movement of like this feminist academic bullshit nobody cares about. It was like put your degree, and it was like all these people were putting like all these degrees. It was before the Joe Biden one, but it was like, so I just changed mine to James Lindsay BDE, but I wrote it like it was an advanced degree, like capital B, lowercase d, period, capital E, period.
Does it
And then
stand for
final,
anything?
big dick energy.
Oh God.
And so it was like somebody finally noticed it, was like, did you change your name to like you have a degree in big dick energy? And I'm like, an advanced degree, actually. Or like but it's leaning in, there's this feminist ranting on Twitter one day, and she was like something, and I called it, I like made fun of it, and she was like, wait till you find out why we're mad. And I'm like, I know, hormones, everybody knows, it's just like obvious.
I know you need dick.
Yeah, exactly. Like never let them get hungry, never let them go too long without dick. It's straight up basic rules of managing your woman. I'm gonna get blown up.
It's okay. It's okay, James. I say the same thing because I was a crazy feminist, right? I talk about it all the time, right out of college, like totally imprinted with it. Like I was fully brainwashed. All my friends were. I was like, this is the way to be an independent woman and be cool and like pursue your career. Don't even think about having kids because that's what stupid girls do. And like here I am, like however many, 15, when did I graduate college? 05. And now I'm like, oh, it's not wrong to think about having kids. Like you're not an idiot. You're not just being overly dependent. It's okay to depend on a man, and guess what? It's okay to depend on other people. Like I'd so much rather have a strong family unit, or like depend on like a husband or a boyfriend, like have that be the daddy instead of government be your daddy, because you that's so far away and that's so big, and like your family is more immediate and you have actually more importance and more effect in a family unit. And it's just like, how do we make this all kind of cool and valuable again?
Isn't it like kind of wild how, like in the 90s, you had people like Axl Rose were like the big rock stars, and now it's like moms. Like mom is a rock star. Like you're like, wow, how did you do that? That's not allowed. Oh my gosh. And it's like a thing I've been noticing lately. It's like, I'm like, shit, I really respect the crap out of moms. Holy cow. There's a thing to that. And so things have really swung a long way there. And you're right, it's okay to be interdependent in healthy ways. And, this is a funny thing, though. I don't know how many of these like kind of feminist women that I've known in my life, especially around graduating college age, who are like, I'm a strong, independent woman, don't need no man. And I ain't never seen them without another like train wreck boyfriend 3 weeks later. I've never seen them make it like more than 3 weeks, where they're like, I was lonely. Like, yeah, okay. That's where, to invoke our hero, Jordan Peterson again, it's like, clean your own room before you try to set the world in order is actually some pretty good advice. And usually, you get the vibe when Peterson's talking that he's talking to young men in particular. But geez, it's like, girls, I see this with a lot of young women in their early 20s right now. And it's like, you would have a much better go with like, you're desperate for a relationship and you're pissed off that you can't get a decent relationship. But if you just like, the advice used to be, take a little time and get your shit straight and figure out what you actually want in life and get that in order, like you're probably going to immediately become more attractive. And then there's this weird thing. There's almost like, we talk about social classes or economic classes or whatever, where there's like, the wealthy and the less wealthy. There's this thing like drama people attract drama people. And
Yes. And they're the
stable
first
people,
ones who say like, oh, I don't know why I attract all this drama, or like that, but it's like you're putting it out 24/7. You
yeah,
fucking love it.
and stable people don't want to be around that. So like if you're like in some drama circuit and you're thinking, why can't I find a great guy? Why can't I find a great girl? And you're in this drama circuit. It's because stability doesn't want to be around instability. That's a
Yeah,
thing. And if you
totally.
don't, yeah, it's a big thing. And so it's like, I get it. You're lonely, but what's going on? Like I'm thinking of actually a family member right now. It's like, you don't have a stable, like secure sense of who you are yet. And so of course you aren't going to be able to figure out what you want. So it's, why don't you get into the project of figuring out who you really are and what you really want and getting yourself together. And it'll be amazing when stuff starts working out for you. Almost not, it doesn't for everybody, but almost by magic, it'll seem like stuff will start working out for you.
Yeah.
Your own insecurities, or in this person's case, her own insecurities are actually the barrier that's keeping her kind of in this tornado. And you can't tell people anything from the outside. They can't see it, but it's a thing.
Especially like you're not gonna listen to like your older brother or your whatever family member. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I realized that when I finally met a good guy, like I spent my whole 20s like chasing validation. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it was like ton of sex, sure, but it was so fleeting. And then I'd be like, who's next? And then because you want anything but to feel like owned by a man or something like that, or you don't want to be financially dependent on a man, whatever. But like I just was so twisted. And then I found a good guy and I'm like, oh, I was so stupid. Like the right person feels like a teammate. It feels like you're building a team. Like a family should feel like a team, or your boyfriend or spouse or whatever. Because it's like
Yep.
their goals are your goals, and their goals are yours, and you support each other. And there's no like, yeah, sure, one person might pay for more shit, but the other person might do more housework. And it's like you're not going to be happy if you're always keeping score. And if you go into it, if you try to go into a partnership with fear, and it's just, yeah, you have to kind of be brave and keep trying instead of, and men and women can both fall into this, like, oh, well, I've been burned, so all women are shit or all guys are cheat. But
Yeah, for sure.
when did you feel like, James, because you said you graduated high school without knowing what communism was, did you have your kind of awakening during college or more recently than that?
I mean, there's just this general sense. It was much more recent. There's a general sense, of course, communism bad in some way. At least my generation, I think, generally accepted communism as bad. Whereas these younger kids, they don't seem to have that. They think communism may be pretty good. Not that good, team. You should go read a little bit about that. Take the time. But no, I didn't really I didn't think about it. I majored in physics, so all I did was physics, and like the consummate person who wanted to study something like physics, that's all I did. I had like my one hobby, I had my one club, and I had physics, and that was it. And then I changed path and switched after I got my bachelor's degree in physics, and then I switched to mathematics. And so it's like my whole world was math, family, hobby, and that was about it. And I didn't think about any of it at all. Like I just didn't think about it. It wasn't relevant to my life. It had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't actually until I realized, like, oh shit, this is kind of creeping on. And I remember even making the argument for a long time, this woke stuff, no, that doesn't have anything to do with communism. No, it's something completely new and different. Yeah, wrong. And then when I finally realized what's actually kind of going on here, I was like, oh no, equity is just the new word for communism. Oh shit.
Right, because who's going to debate, because it leads you down a path of, what do you mean? Of course things should be equal. Like, and if you don't feel that way, you're obviously racist. And like,
I literally had somebody hit me with that on Twitter this morning. She was like, but do you even know what the problems with equality are and why equity is more important? And it's like, believe me, lady, I know what I'm talking about here. So yeah, I don't know. It was just really actually in the last 4 or 5 years that I've actually become really interested in making sure I understand why. I mean, I knew it was communism, horrible, millions dead, but I didn't know why, and I didn't know why people are so attracted to it, and I didn't know how it goes about its activism until I actually started reading, things written by communists or things written by defected communists who went to try to explain themselves after the fact. And then it's like, oh no, because the thing I'm looking at otherwise, this weird scholarship that I was trying to make fun of, like a lot of this maps straight on here. That's not good. What's going on? And I didn't ever picture myself as somebody who had to become very aware of communism and like an active anti-communist or something like that. But I always tell people that I fell ass backwards into all of this. I was trying to mind my own business and do my own thing, but I have this problem with bullshit and unfairness, and I ran into a lot of bullshit and unfairness, and suddenly that means, oh, now I've got to do something.
Or you just couldn't find a physics job.
No, I didn't want a physics job. Oh my God. I took classical mechanics and then classical electricity and magnetism. And I was like, oh crap, screw this. This is really difficult.
If you pursued that, what does that mean? Like you're literally building rockets? Like what job does that leave you
I
with?
don't know. The school I went to had a default concentration in nuclear physics. So everybody as a senior had to study nuclear physics in particular. And we have I live in East Tennessee, so the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where they helped build the first nuclear bomb, is here. And so had I stayed in the area, I would probably and finished, sufficient research in physics or doctoral level stuff in physics. I probably either would have ended up as a college professor in physics or working. If I stayed here, I would have ended up in that national laboratory probably.
Wow.
A friend of mine who majored in physics ended up working in one of the coal-fired plants near here, and his job was to model something like they use all these lasers to determine exactly how hot the fire is, and like every cubic centimeter of the blast chamber. I know it's crazy high tech, and they actually, I didn't know this, they grind. Why we're talking about this, I don't know, but you grind the coal into this super fine powder and blast it in there with lots of oxygen, and it's like literally like a rocket engine going on in there. And so they have all these lasers like to read the temperature at every cubic centimeter, and his job is to like figure out how to make that flame the absolute most efficient so that there's the least amount of pollution and the most amount of energy extracted from it, which is actually super high tech and cool. So maybe something like that had I stayed in physics. If I stayed in math, I would have been a math professor. I mean, I studied pure math, which doesn't really translate into employability.
Unless you're talking about math being racist, that's very hot right now.
Well, no, you have to get a degree in math ed to do that. You see, none of those people have degrees in math. They have only education degrees. All of this shit, well, not quite all of it, but a lot of this shit is all down to flunky education majors deciding they're now going to rule the world. And yeah, I know. And it's like you went to college, you know what's going on. And like, I hate to say this because the woman I'm thinking of is a wonderful person. But I was in college, I was finishing my master's degree, and my roommate's girlfriend, they're married, or I think they're still married. They married anyway. I went to their wedding way back 20 years ago.
How old are you?
I am 40, almost 2. I'm creeping on 42.
Wow, you don't look 42.
No, I am well preserved. And so I went with her. She was an ed major, and she was finishing, I don't remember if it was her bachelor's like senior project or if it was a master's project. But I went with her, walked across campus, and I went into the ed building for like the first time in my life. And it was like all this like stuff you would expect. It looked like an elementary school on the walls with all the like posters, the cork boards and everything else. And I thought, well, that's fitting because they have to plan that stuff. And then, but it's a little weird because I'm in a university and then seeing this. And then she goes in and talks to her professor for a little while, and she comes out and she's carrying a poster board with glitter on it, like literally with glitter. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And I asked her, did you guys have to like, create, what is this? And she's like, no, our project, it wasn't like you had to simulate something for children. That was how she presented her senior project, was something that you would see like a middle schooler do. And I was like, what the hell happens in this building? I'm just sitting there trying to be super polite and like nice to my roommate's fiance. And it's like, what the hell happens in this? Like, this isn't, why is this at college? It's Why is this at college? So now I'm like super
Wow.
hardcore. I'm like, defund colleges of education, get rid of them, find alternative ways to credential and license teachers.
Right. And I mean, then you hear people say like who those who can't do teach. And like, but the only example I have is my sister. Like she was an English major and then somehow like figured out she wanted to teach history, but like, yeah, then had to go into teaching. But like was never, I don't know. She's only a history nerd in so fact, like she'll talk about like she loves to tell me like, oh, did you know Marilyn Monroe's panties were in JFK's bed and the wife found them. Like she loves interesting tidbits like that and like just scandalous stuff. And I don't know, I think she's one of the good ones, but then you look at universities and you're like, oh yeah, these are brainwashing machines. And I feel like they kind of it took me years to kind of overcome it and like smarten up just through life experience. But then you talk about your friend who like his job is to like it's so detailed and it's about like making a flame. I'm like, okay, well for sure that guy is he's not on Twitter probably. He's just really into his job and those aren't the kind of people who are going to teach. It seems like the people that get into teaching are ones that just want to have influence, like the worst teachers, the ones that are just like, well, this is who I have power over. These people listen to me, which is so scary.
No, it's true. It's because there's like everybody knows about there's the bad teacher pipeline like that, but there's also like everybody knows about the bad cop pipeline where it's like that dude who was like middling, but always kind of wanted to be a bully, but was like just this middling dork in high school, goes off to police academy. He's out there like, taking out his frustrations on society now that he has a stick and a gun. And it's like, that's actually a problem. And, I'm pretty on the side of the police in a lot of sticky situations, but that is like a thing, right? But you have the same pipeline, this kind of pipeline where you have people who want to become teachers and administrators. What they actually want is to boss people around. They want to set community guidelines. They want to have the power to decide, how people are going to think and act and do. God, I hate the people who define community guidelines. I hate the people. I've got to the point now, honestly, where when I hear the word community, I just cringe.
Isn't that terrible? Like, like we have to have new words.
Well, I mean, that's true. They've poisoned a lot of words. I'm writing literally an encyclopedia of words they poisoned, and it got kind of so exhausting after I hit about 150 of them that I was just like, okay. So I've leaned in lately, speaking of leaning into words that I think are funny, which mostly come out of queer theory, or not even queer theory, like stupid activism around queer theory. So I added to the list, I haven't done it yet, but I added universal vagina the other day. Have you heard that term yet?
Universal vagina?
Yeah. See,
No.
Social Justice Encyclopedia is what I'm talking about.
This here. Okay.
Yeah, so universal vagina means butthole.
Right. Because not
one.
all women have vaginas, apparently.
Right. But everybody has a butthole. And, there you go. It is a universal vagina. That's the thing. I haven't put it on there on the website yet. I have a paper list. Things graduate up to the.
Oh my God. This is so good, James. Valid. That pisses me off too. It's so many of these words. I'm just like, ugh.
I just realized I've not done a single word in the V category. I've got to work on that.
Oh, you mean these are all okay? You can't click on them,
right? Yeah. It turns out that they take a long time. There are a lot.
This is a ton of work. Yeah, this is a lot of work.
I do it by myself, and on top of everything else, which right now 90% of my job is being on Twitter 9 hours a day, answering people's DMs and tweeting, mostly tweeting the shit they send me. So like literally, I get like 1,000 DMs, and I feel really bad if I ignore people's DMs. And so I like have to psychologically figure out how to not care that people are sending me like stuff.
Wow. So you really answer everybody back, like even if you're not following them or if they're not?
No, I don't answer everybody back. If there's two sides, right? There's like message requests, and most of those I either ignore or glance at. But then some of them I let in. And then once I've let people in, I actually read every damn thing on that side. And that's way too much because it's literally taking like 9 hours of my day every day. And I think it's probably the case that my time is better spent actually producing things. Like yesterday, I got up and my whole afternoon was fucked because I got up and I had this idea for an essay. So I was like, oh, I don't write a lot of essays anymore because I kind of think people don't read. And like if I put out an essay, it'll get like 40,000 views. But if I put out a podcast, it'll get like 10 times that. So it's like, I know where my time's better spent. But I had this idea for an essay. So I just got up and I wrote a 7,200 word essay and sent it off to get finished up and formatted and published.
Wow.
I write fast. I write real fast. And so I did this, but this took like 6 hours, like total or something.
Holy. Do you, when inspiration strikes you, are you just like in a fugue state, you're in a zone, you bang it out?
Yeah,
Or do you
like I forget, like I didn't eat. I just
Oh
got up and
wow.
had this idea for an essay, and I wear
That's pretty
contacts,
cool.
so I put in my contacts and I got a cup of coffee, and I did not make food.
Wow.
I sat down at my laptop and I started typing, and then it was like 3 o'clock. And I was
Wow.
like, I haven't eaten. I haven't had another glass of water. I think I did have one glass of water and a cup of coffee. And like the coffee mug is like dirty. It's still sitting like right next to me where I put it at 8, whatever in the morning when I sat down. And I went into this complete zone. It was worse when I used to do math professionally. I had one day where literally I was in the same room that I'm in right now, which doesn't have any windows.
Oh
And
no.
it's in the middle of the house. So I'm working on this math problem that I was doing. I don't remember. It was like not part of my dissertation, I think. But I was working on this math problem that I thought was interesting and hard. And then my wife finally like knocks on the door and is like, "Are you coming to bed?" And I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "We just got up. Like, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Do you know what time it is?" And I looked at the clock and it was like 11 something. And in my brain, I thought it was 11 in the morning because only 3 hours
Whoa.
had gone by, but 15 hours had gone by because I had been so absorbed in the problem that I didn't know that literally an entire day happened.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Like, and that kind of thing would happen to me too a lot, like with art. Like I don't know, I went to my brother's house and his wife was like, "Well, just paint the baby's room." And once I got this idea, I was like, boom, same thing. Like I was fully in it for hours. And they're like, "Do you want food?" And I was like, "What?"
Who? Yeah, what?
Yeah, like no, and you really want to finish it, but that's pretty amazing that you're so open to receive that inspiration and it just flows through you. But
Yeah, I
that's
was laying in bed and I was like, I should write an essay about that. And so I got up, went through the coffee making and contact putting in and bathroom going to morning routine, and sat down at my laptop. And then 7 hours later, I had a 7,000 word essay that I had gone through a couple of times and got where I wanted it. But then what happened was I didn't check what was happening on the social media in those 6 or 7 hours because I was in my zone. And it was like literally the entire rest of my day was catching up to the pile of messages. Like, it's like I open one of these DMs, somebody, it's like, there's a face or whatever. I click on it and it's like 56 new messages. I'm like, why did you send me 56 messages without me answering you?
right. Why did you keep going? Like, didn't you have anything else to do with your day? Is that kind of nice when that happens, James? Like you're in a project or you're in the zone and you can kind of, because I imagine just answering messages on social media every day can get like really emotionally exhausting. And
It's extraordinarily exhausting to bounce from one person's thoughts to another person's thoughts to another person's thoughts. So it's way better when I get to live in mine. But the problem is, I got described once, and I know it's a little arrogant to talk about myself this way, but I got described once as like the Saudi oil field of knowledge. But the problem
ooh,
is like this guy was like, you have knowledge of like a lot of stuff and a lot of knowledge of these things, but like you won't say a damn thing until you have to stick the tap into the sand and then the oil will come out. Like I won't think to say anything. I'll sit there and be quiet. Like we could go out to dinner or whatever, and I would just sit there and kind of awkwardly not talk. And like, you're gonna have to carry the conversation. And then you hit something, and I'm like, you're not gonna talk again. Sorry. This is let me mansplain the rest of this evening away to you.
that's interesting though, because you're not coming into a conversation like with an agenda. Like you're truly open and present. And if somebody taps you on something, then yeah, you'll share it. I don't know.
Then
I think
then
that's better.
they're fucked is what's up. But because I won't like, it sounds all creepy, but it's like I won't stop. It's like once you hit something that I'm like excited about, like, oh, here we go. But yeah, literally, I'll sit there and listen. I'll barely talk. I'll add in little like here or there. But unless you end up kind of asking a question that opens the floodgates, What I have to say, it's really weird. I don't think anything I have to say is that interesting.
That's how interesting people feel like, though. You're always like, the more you know, the more you feel like, oh, I don't know shit. Like, you know what I mean?
That's
Because
true.
it's
Yeah.
like the truly dumb people that think they know everything and they don't need to learn anymore.
That's what we were talking about on Twitter actually earlier, is like we used to joke about that, but now it's not even funny, but it's like the next morning everybody's a PhD in like whatever it is. Like today, everybody on the planet is a PhD, and the difference between what a taser and a handgun feel like when you're in a emergency situation and you're acting very quickly, then exactly what I love all these PhDs, Twitter PhDs, instant PhDs in police training, and they're like, the police academy failed this person, blah blah blah, and the person's got 25 years experience and was literally training somebody else. It's like, yeah, okay, okay, homie.
What do you find like are your floodgate topics where if somebody taps you on it, you can talk forever about?
There are a lot of them. You never quite know. It's like stepping on landmines. Like, whoops, now I'm going to talk for an hour.
Being a math person, what did you think of Good Will Hunting? I can't even think of any other math movies that.
Well, there is another math movie, which was A Beautiful Mind, and I hate crazy people math movies. Like, oh yeah, everybody's like, did you like that movie, A Beautiful Mind? I'm like, you mean the one where the mathematician goes schizophrenic? No, I did not like that movie. It was too close to home. No, I love Good Will Hunting though, actually. I really liked, I like the idea of the scrappy, blue collar, quiet, secret genius guy who's smarter than I've got, maybe it's the most American thing about me, I've got an anti-elite streak. Like I want to, if I had to pick, hang out with Harvard people or hang out with blue collar dudes at a dive, I'm at the dive 100% of the time. Unless maybe, there's a tomahawk ribeye with the Harvard guys, and I'm going to the dive after the tomahawk ribeye. It's true, though.
That's like the one that's like this big, right?
Yeah, it has that big bone sticking out of it. Oh, I love it.
Wow, you're such a man.
I know. It is true. Here, check this out. Extra manly.
That's when you say it hit too close to home, do you feel like math people are a little bit more vulnerable to that kind of a thing?
I don't know. I mean, math people tend, though, to be a bit detached from reality, not in the weird kind of woke way where they're like making up reality. It's like they just kind of don't care about it. And, the idea, like I always got told, this is totally screwed up, but when I was a child, when I was young, my grandmother used to swear up and down that I was so smart that I was going to go insane. She's like, you're so smart, you're going to go crazy. Now, of course, there's a whole cottage industry of people on Twitter who believe that this prophecy has been fulfilled. But it's like, I can see where you kind of like with John Nash, that's what A Beautiful Mind's about. The idea was that he was so into seeing patterns that he started detecting patterns that weren't there and his mind broke. And you can kind of see that, right? It's like you can kind of you can see what's going on there. And so I don't know. I don't think I was likely to go crazy. The style of math that I did wasn't really a crazy maker, but like I could see it if you were a number theorist or something and you got way too into it, or a cryptographer or something. I mean, that's what number theory leads into, is cryptography in a practical application.
Cryptography? But, no, wait. I thought that was making maps, but that's cartography.
Yeah, you missed on that one. Yeah, cryptography is something else. That's codes and encryption and so on like that. Which, if the number theorists have some big breakthroughs, we might be in some big trouble on that. But that's another topic for another day that I could talk to you about for an hour.
Ooh, okay, interesting. It's anybody, like you can get too much into your genius, right? Like it's all about moderation. Like if you're in it so much that it's affecting other parts of your life, then yeah, pull back.
Yeah, that's why I tell people you got to get out in the world. Like you got to go interact with reality. I hate basketball. I'm terrible at basketball, but I occasionally force myself to go down to the park and throw a ball vaguely in the direction of a hoop that I can't usually make anything happen.
Just check it.
Because the ball doesn't lie, right? Reality can't lie to you, and it doesn't have the capacity to lie to you. And so, you throw the ball and it either goes in the thing or you completely miss or it bricks or if you miss completely, now you're chasing it down a hill or some awful thing because you're 40 and you're fat. And it's really hard to chase a basketball when you're 40 and you're fat, as opposed to when you're 7 and your energy is infinite. So it's really good to do that, get out. And I used to tell philosophers that the most valuable thing philosophers can do is go dig a hole in the ground, because you smell the earth, you feel the weight of the earth, you get the mud on your hands, it's stuck in your shoes, it's super annoying. You can't deny any of that. You get brought literally back to earth out of your ideas.
It's balance, right? Because if you're so in your head, then you need to realize that, and you're like, okay, I need to do the opposite of that to keep myself balanced. Like if you're just like, I don't know, if you're all in your head, you got to get into your physical. If you're too like, everything is black and white, well, then maybe you need to do something that like taps into your creativity.
Yeah, this is like I said, I had my, my studies, my family, and my hobby. My hobby, actually, all since I was like 15, is in martial arts. And I used to fight and all this stuff. So it was like, the saying in jiu-jitsu or whatever is everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Or I don't know if that's in jiu-jitsu. I think that's a boxing statement. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's true, the reality, it brings you back down to the ground. So one of the things I actually train with now, which was a tangent of my own making starting last summer, is axes. And people know that I do this. It's become kind of a little like joke around me on Twitter. The axes are sharp. I do train also with swords. I don't sharpen the swords. I'm not quite that mental, but the axes are sharp. And so you have to be aware. I mean, I was actually outside sharpening the axe to like razor sharp yesterday.
While maniacally laughing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, there's literally nothing fun about a file. But I was sharpening the axe, and if you're not real present with a live blade, you've got some real problems in the making for you. I even have a friend who has nothing to do with martial arts or training that actually had an axe fall on his foot, like at a party, because it was like stood up the wrong way. Why an axe was indoors at a party with the head facing upward, balanced against a bookcase, I don't know, but somebody bumped it and it fell and it went into his foot. And it's like, that's the kind of awareness that reality, like if that's a great example of doing something where you're detached from reality, and then there being this awful consequence of it, even though it was stupid and I guess not technically his fault. He didn't bump into the thing or put the axe there or anything. But nevertheless, it's like you do have to have that element of reality. You do have to connect to that element of reality, because if everything's just like live action role playing, you don't know what's real and what's not. And you lose something. Like you said, you get caught way off in the clouds or way off in your own head, and you believe things that are just wrong.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot, this is such a trap. It's easy to fall into. And it's like, I just think a lot of people are unwell. You know what I mean? Like they're just kind of like mentally, you don't even have to be mentally ill, but it's like, you can so easily waste so much of your day on Twitter or like fighting with people that you're just robbing yourself of it. It's like, what's more important, being right to people you'll never meet, or like, what is best for me to do today? Like maybe I should work out. Maybe I should like read the books I've always wanted to read, or like fucking call my dad or something.
Yeah, for sure. That's a huge thing. And it's like, it's not self-fulfilling. What is the word? I don't know. It's a self-reinforcing system, because like social media and I think intentionally legacy media like CNN, or corporate press or whatever, try to make people anxious, because when you're anxious, you need a resolution to the anxiety. So you keep looking. I try to feel my way. Like when I get pissy or kind of in a knot about what I see on Twitter, like, oh, these riots are breaking out. I can't, like last night, I couldn't go to bed because somebody sent me this shit right before. It was like I was about half an hour before I would have gone to bed at a late but reasonable hour. And I ended up going to bed after like 2 because I couldn't go to bed because I saw the riots happening. And I'm like, in fact, the one that got me was the one that was happening in DC, which made no sense. Nothing occurred in DC. And it's like, I couldn't let go of it. So what was going on, I'm processing this as I finally drag myself off and I go to bed. I'm laying there trying to go to sleep thinking, what just happened? Like, let's reflect on this. What just happened? And what had happened or in the funny voice of a friend of mine, what happened was that I got anxious and I wanted resolution to that anxiety. And psychologically, my brain was telling me the resolution to this anxiety lives somewhere in your phone. And you just have to wait until you find it. And so then I'm caught. And then my phone, though, isn't feeding me resolution to anxiety. It's feeding me more anxiety. CNN would not have fed
Yeah.
me any resolution to my anxiety. It is feeding me more anxiety. And therefore, the resolution of my anxiety was to put my phone down, turn it off, put it down, and go to bed. And like, I don't know how many times in the past 6 months it's been take my phone, put the damn thing down, go outside and work out, or go outside and do some task for the garden or whatever. I pruned all of our pear trees one day, and
Ooh.
so yeah, and
Do you have
so
a squirrel problem? My dad always used
we
to.
have all the squirrels. We have, I think, a small city of squirrels. Like, we could probably start a reality show of squirrels.
Are you someone who my dad always would set up like squirrel traps and then he would go drive across town to like let them free, which is I guess better than
No,
killing them. But I'm like they're gonna find their way back, or do you just kind of embrace the squirrels, like set up a picnic table for them, that sort of
yeah, I
thing?
just kind of watch them. My wife makes fun of me. She's like, "You like the squirrels too much. They're rats." And I'm like, "But they're kind of adorable and they're sort of hilarious."
They are adorable. My dad would grease up the pole of the bird feeder and he loved to like watch them like scoot up and fall down. Yeah,
That's
it's good
that's
times.
classic stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's classic entertainment. It's like you don't even need TV for that.
But what you were saying before with Twitter, it's like you actually have to decide not for a resolution. You have to, you know what I mean? It's like you want a resolution so bad, you want to find an answer, you want to find peace, but in that moment you actually have to be like, I need to choose the opposite, which in that moment doesn't feel like the right choice.
That is correct. Because again, psychologically, you believe the answer to my problem lives in my phone. It does not live there. The answer to your problem lives in breaking away from that thing, and it's very difficult to perceive that because, I mean, I know that not everybody's this way, but being kind of a heady guy as it is, I tend to believe that knowledge is the like if I get anxious about something in general in any walk of life, I'm one of those people that's like, well, if I just know more about it, then I'll feel better. Right. And so you get this if you are that kind of person, like some people are like, I'm going to do something about this. And it's a different path. And then I, bless those people because they have a different approach. But if you're one of those people who believes, if I just know more about this, then I can resolve my own anxiety and tension, then your phone becomes a symbol, or your computer, if you're on a computer, I guess, becomes a symbol of the resolution. And psychologically, you're like, reload, it'll be there. Reload, it'll be there. Reload, it'll be there. It's not going to be there. It's like if
Yeah.
you're worried about somebody in your family, right? Something bad's happened, and you're like checking to see if you got a text message like every 4 seconds. But if you really, say the text message is eventually going to come in 20 minutes, or that later on reflection it came in 20 minutes, you checking half an hour later and you checking every 4 seconds are approximately identical. Like there's this feeling like you have to be actively engaged to get that information ASAP. And with social media, it's not the same as maybe you're going to get that text from your mom and find out she's okay or whatever. You're literally plugging yourself into the situation that, and I very much mean it. I mean CNN sells anxiety. Their primary product is not news, it's anxiety.
Yeah, I feel like every time I pull the reload on Twitter, it feels like I'm pulling like a slot machine, like or reloading the news because it's like you're looking for more. It's like, oh, I didn't win with that pull. I'm gonna pull it again, and I have to be more conscious of that. It's like when like my boyfriend's 10-year-old kid, like he's had too many video games and he gets crazy, and everybody can tell he's getting crazy. He needs to stop. It's like, well, who's there to tell an adult that they're getting that way because they keep pulling and they keep, oh, exactly. Well, I didn't win. I didn't win on that route. I didn't like beat the boss. So I'm going to try again.
Yeah.
But you're just making yourself nuts.
Yeah. My brother was that kid. Oh my God. He was that kid. He'd go absolutely like berserk and get maniacal trying because he couldn't beat the boss or whatever.
Are you an oldest or a middle?
I'm the older.
Okay.
There's just two of us.
Okay. Yeah. You have older brother vibes.
Yep, that's true.
Wait, what's your contact prescription? Because I wear contacts too. And
I don't remember the diameter off the top of my head, obviously, but it's
oh,
-275.
oh, that's like barely. You're fine.
No, I gotta go though. They gotta get amplified because like everything's fuzzy. Like I can't read street signs now. It's like I don't think I can legally drive or something. I shouldn't say that on the internet.
You're probably fine. Yeah.
But no, it's like I am actually getting to the point where it's like I'm kind of like tired and headachy because they're not good enough anymore, and it's like I've let this go too long. But
Yeah.
I got lied to by life. I'm the victim here because I had to get glasses when I was in high school, and they were like, when you first get glasses, everybody who has them or whatever knows, but nobody else knows. Like the first thing that happens is your vision immediately gets worse for like
Because you have your headache, it's hard to see if it's too much. Yeah.
I think it's because you're like constantly trying, like you're keeping some eye muscle strong or something. And so, it immediately shifted to -2.5, like after the first month or 2 months or something. And it stayed there completely stable for like 16 years. They did not change at all. And then when I got to 2.75, like when I went to whatever this was a couple of years ago, like the guy was like, technically your vision, he's like, you're in between and contacts come in quarter, like 0.25, 0.5, 0.75. And he was like, your vision is actually 2013 with these. That won't last. But like I was like, shit, I feel like I got telescopes in my eyes. And it was really tiring for like a few weeks. And now it's the other way. So now they've slipped and I don't know where they're at, but they're probably 3 or 3.25.
I'm like 8.50, like 8.5 in one, 8.25 in the other. So
How
damn.
many
Yeah, I'm thinking like, do I want to do LASIK? But it's a little scary.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so LASIK, right? So we can talk about LASIK. I kind of want that, but I don't want the nightmares for the rest of my life. I'm not even scared
nightmares.
You are awake when the laser machine shoots you in the eye, and your eyes are open because they're shooting you in the eye. So you put those two things together, and it's like a scene out of like one of those fucking movies. Like I don't know if I'm going to get nightmares, but I'm willing to bet like the robot laser machine with my eyes clamped open and my head, I'm willing to bet that that's nightmare fodder.
How does that not hurt? Even though they say like, oh, there's no nerves in your eyes, but it's like it's shooting into your freaking eye. Like, how do you?
Because they numb that shit up, man. I know a bunch of people have had it done, but I have not had it done. I think about it not often because I don't have time to think about things, but otherwise it would be constantly.
Yeah. And I feel like I can delay the start of my day if I just don't put my contacts in until like a little bit later. Like the day is
magical.
Yeah. You're just like not a person.
No, I can't see yet. It's not a day. Yeah. I can't see. Like, everything's blurry.
Yeah.
The day hasn't started until I put them in, and the day doesn't end until I take them out.
Do you ever sleep with them in?
Not on purpose, but like occasionally I have. Okay, so it was like even just like a couple of months ago, I was super tired and I fell asleep, and I thought I had taken my contacts out, but I had not taken them out. Like I swear I thought I had taken them out, and I fell asleep, and my eyes are all screwed up and gummy when I wake up. And I went in and I opened up my contact case, right? And there's no contacts in it, obviously, because they're in my eyes. But my eyes are all gummy, so stuff's kind of blurry. And I was like, oh, I must have thrown them away. So I could, like, I'm so out of it, so tired. I was like, I must have thrown them away. So I put in new ones. So I got a box, I got a new pair out, and I literally put them on top of the ones that were already in my eyes. And I could not figure out what was going on for like.
I've done that too. I've worn like 2. It's so scary too, because it's like there have been times where I've worn 2 contacts, like one on top of the other, which you would think would render you blind, but it's like, no. Like I was just like, oh wow. And then I took them out and I was like, oh my God, there was 2 in there, which seems
not right here. Yeah. No, it's really weird. But yeah, occasionally it happens. I don't ever do it on purpose. Like I will go through some effort to make sure that I don't do it on like, it's like, I think one time I can think of is like I was traveling and I might've been drunk or something. And it was like, shit, I have no options here. Like I cannot possibly, and it wasn't like a good enough hotel where they have this stuff. And it was like, there's no way at like 1 a.m. I'm going to figure out how to navigate to a drugstore hammered. And I somehow forgot my case or whatever, or ran out of solution, one or the other.
Yeah,
Because you can't
somebody
soak them in tap water. That's a
right.
nightmare.
Right. Somebody told me once, like, oh, if you get little cups and you just like put them in your own saliva. So what am I going to be spitting into like hotel cups? And like, yeah,
No, I'm
like,
not.
no, I
I'm going to take the hit on this one.
your face on that was great.
Yeah.
Um, James, where can people find you, follow you, learn more? I don't know if you wanted to talk more about new discourses, or have any other, point folks to places where they can go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about New Discourses and tell people they should go there. New Discourses is basically like it's a very successful project. That's what I'll say. No, it's basically I'm trying to get information about what's going on with this so-called woke or social justice or whatever you want to call it movement out as fast as possible and as freely as possible. There's no ads on the site. Everything is just crowd supported. I wish people call me a grifter, but I'm not. It's just crowd funded. You can sign up for my Patreon, or if you don't like Patreon, there's like 5 of them. Just pick whichever one you like, and which ones you don't like, don't use those ones. I don't care. What I'm trying to do is get information. Most of the articles on it, most of the stuff on there now is podcasts. I've made like 40 podcasts this year, some of which are behind a paywall, see only subs. That means that's for my subscribers only, to thank them and give them special content. Those are short podcasts that range between 5 and 25 minutes usually. And then I have a New Discourses podcast that's public, and those are typically closer to an hour. Sometimes they go an hour and a half. Sometimes they're only half an hour, but 30 to 120 minutes. And then I have articles, and I publish some other people's articles. I need to get an editor so I can publish more other people's articles, because I don't have time to read through all of them and go through the whole editorial process with everybody all the time. But so that's what's there. Audio, there are some videos, there are articles where I'm trying to get information out as much as possible. We talked about the encyclopedia earlier, where I'm trying to decode their misuses of language, because if you understand their manipulation of language, you see through it, you don't fall for the trick, and you can avoid it. So I've been doing that for just over a year. It's growing. It's grown well and is still growing well. It is run with the idea of like it's a foundation, though, like an educational foundation, and it is not one. So I can't take C3 based, tax whatever donation. So I've kind of put myself in a weird position with it. But that's the goal of New Discourses, is to get that out there. We actually had intended the business to have lots of conference and like workshop driven stuff. So that's where we would actually get together in human form with people. And then we launched it the week before the lockdown started. What a good time for a travel based business to begin. So we've been, doing what we've been doing instead. So you can go there, you can get lots of resources. It's all free. There's hundreds of articles now. There are hundreds of defined terms on the encyclopedia that's still continually growing. It's kind of my home on the web as far as like long form information goes. And the articles I write on there tend to be long and difficult. I was going to say long and hard, but then, that puts thoughts in people's heads. And it's true, it does. And so they're long and hard, like many other things. And so then I'm also on social media. New Discourses has its presence, so you can check out New Discourses at any of the, favorite social media sites that you might go to. Usually it's at New Discourses as one kind of word, no underscores or dashes or whatever. I think we're certainly present on Twitter, but it's on more or less all of them, the major ones. And then I usually go under @ConceptualJames. I'm by far most active on Twitter. Most of what's going on the other social media, in case you don't like Twitter, is an aggregation of what's happening on my Twitter. I just kind of transfer Twitter stuff over. Yeah, my Twitter is crazy. What does it say? I'm at 201.9. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I crossed 200,000 recently. That's very exciting. So
do you get anything? Does Twitter send you like a golden bird or something?
No, they don't give you anything. No, they just give you more shit, probably. You'll notice there's no blue check mark.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I don't think they like me. So yeah, that's where I'm most active by far. I've already confessed that if you DM me, I'll probably see it. So that if I don't answer you, no, I just didn't see it. I promise. Don't worry. But you can check me out on whatever social media. And ideally, hopefully, we're actually, now that COVID is waning, supposing we don't all end up under the iron thumb of vaccine passports or some weird shit, hopefully we'll start to transition into that live event
great.
phase soon. So you'll be able, like, you're doing all your shows, like you said at the beginning. I'll be doing not quite the same kind of shows.
I would love to have you on one of my shows. We could do a collab. This is great, James. It really comes through that you're just trying to help people because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot out there to confuse you. And it seems like New Discourses is answering a lot of the questions that a lot of regular people have. Like, no, the woke won't debate you. And here's why. And I really like the way that you explain things. So I'm sure
Thanks.
everybody can go on there and learn things. And James and his math brain is going through all the news, so we don't have to. James, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, hopefully I'll meet you in the real world one day.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Absolutely.
Thanks, James. Bye.
Bye.